Welcome back, everybody. This is Jeff with the People Talking to People Smarter Than Me podcast. Sponsored by Talent Reach is my company, which helps companies build strong, productive sales teams that win Best Places to Work awards. They crush quota. And we partner with startups and fast-growing organizations to solve sort of three main big challenges: premium staff augmentation, helping hiring managers wade through bad resumes, and risk reduction through hiring guarantees. And so to learn more about them, visit the website at talentreachnw.com or send a note to me at Jeff, it's Geof, at talentreachnw.com. And so each week, I try to speak with sales and HR leaders to explore topics like hiring, tech, sales, and really these days navigating an uncertain economy. And my guests share challenges and tips for sales leaders who are building effective teams, and including how to overcome obstacles, stay resilient, and become advocates of people in that tech sales hiring world. So I'm super excited right now this week to have two awesome customer service gurus from Zoominfo, John Mountain and Mary Iapicca. Say hi, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're gonna dig into some of the retention concepts and ways, not only to talk about how to hire people into those roles, how to keep people there, and then how that translates into a culture of really the focus of what you all do, which is make sure that people are having a really great customer experience and using the tools that you train. Zoominfo has, like, bar none, one of the best onboarding programs in SaaS. So I'm really, really excited to hear a lot of your insight. Mary, I'm going to give you guys a quick 30 seconds. Tell us a little bit of your background, who you are, what you're focused on. Please, if you have something that's on your mind, you want to pitch, free game.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again for having us. As you said, my name is Mary Iapicca. I have been with Zoominfo since February as their Director of Customer Onboarding and Adoption. Previous to that, I was at an ed tech company doing similar work in customer onboarding and adoption. I was an onboarding manager myself in my very first company in SaaS, and I loved it. But my background is in teaching, and I love just educating and teaching people. And so when I moved from higher education into SaaS, it was a natural fit for me. And I've been doing education ever since, and I just continue to do that. And I love where this focus is and getting people up and running and started.
Right on. John, you're up.
All right, sounds good. Well, Jeff, it's a pleasure to be here. It's good to speak with you again. My name is John Mountain. I am the team lead on our customer onboarding team, so I work really closely with Mary. I've been here at Zoominfo for quite some time. I've actually been here for a little bit over 5 years. I came over here as part of the Tellwise team and bringing the sales automation into the Zoominfo space. So it's been really exciting working here at Zoominfo in terms of launching our different products and getting our customers to adopt to these products and use them into their day-to-day business. So over the time, though, here, while I've been here, I've been given the pleasure to work with many different organizations, whether that's been on the solution sales team, whether it's been on the adoption team, and now recently part of the onboarding team. So really excited to be here working alongside Mary and the other leaders on our onboarding team as well, ensuring our customers are seeing success as soon as they're coming on day one.
And I feel like this might be obvious, but guys, give your 30-second pitch of really what Zoominfo and Engage are. I know most people know, especially in the tech sales world, it's something. Zoominfo is one thing. Engage is something else that might need a little bit of definition, because we're going to talk about it a lot. One of you guys want to jump in there and...
Yeah, John, I will let you, I know you love Engage, and I'll let you go for it.
Sure. Well, how about this? What I'll tackle, I'll just maybe just combo it. So when it comes to Zoominfo, I like to say that Zoominfo is the modern day go-to market operating system for helping businesses out there get a hold of their next best customer. So when it comes to either providing great data, whether it's to providing sales automation in terms of being more efficient as a seller, or even providing conversational intelligence to give you those great deal insights to the deals that you're structuring as a salesperson, I like to say that we got you covered on any end of the spectrum. So specifically when it comes to Engage, Engage is our sales automation platform that we offer here at Zoominfo. And instead of using all the buzzwords when it comes to the prospecting and the outreach, and we hear like with sequences and templates and things like that, really what I like to say about when it comes to Engage is that we're providing the solution for sales reps to make it easier for you to get a hold of your customers. So when it comes to prospecting, there's, we hear about all of the time when it comes to prospecting that obviously the idea of prospecting is hard in terms of getting the right person on the phone and sending the right message. But a lot of people, aren't thinking about the manual work that really goes into prospecting. So when it comes to making the phone calls, instead of manually dialing the telephone, or when it comes to sending emails and, copying emails in your inbox and sending those out, we're able to provide you the tools. So we're able to give you the time back in the day to focus more on what you're best at, which is selling, and then providing you with the tools on our end for a system like Engage to help with the automation of those tedious tasks of delivering those emails, providing you the analytics in terms of what's working and what isn't.
John, is Engage a competitor to platforms like Outreach and SalesLoft? Is it different in any way?
Yeah, I would definitely say that Engage is competing with similar solutions like those that you mentioned. I think that, when it comes to these other solutions on the market, it's always tough to say like, oh, this product has this or this solution has that and makes it better. One thing that we really do like to strive ourselves on over here at Zoominfo is the data backing it. So, when you are investing in a solution like Engage, you have that fantastic data behind it to ensure that, when you are reaching out to that person, whether it's through email, through phone, that you have that high quality data on the back end, ensuring that you're going to get connected to that individual.
Yeah.
Right on, right on.
Sorry, I was gonna say, I would just add on to that too. It is the connectedness of the operating system that Zoominfo provides that really powers Engage and differentiates it from any other, sales automation tool that you may have.
And I think that's a great segue. What I know is that you really are deep into the mind of the sales mentality. You sell to sales people, sales teams, sales organizations, and then you support them, especially your team on the back end. Talk us a little bit about sort of what's happening currently in the world, because we've got a very interesting news cycle that if you watch some channels, you think the sky is falling, and if you're looking for work, you might be wondering, what's coming next. Since you're so tied into that whole cycle, just give me like a quick minute or two of your crystal ball. What's going on
In sales in general and sales hiring?
Yeah, it across the board. Like, you're seeing people like use your platform to then go use it to sell to. So you're selling to salespeople. You're onboarding them and hearing what they're saying. Like anything at all. It doesn't have to be about the economy or whether people are hiring or not. And what's sort of top of mind?
Well, in a very blanket statement, people are purchasing Zoominfo and people are utilizing it and seeing success, right? I think that with any market the way that it is, we are seeing our tool being used and people are finding the prospects that they're looking for and they're seeing their pipeline increased or their prospects increased. And so, the news cycle, to your point, depending on what you're looking at and what you're reading, is going to tell a different story. I think we're just seeing people having success with our platforms, and that's great for them and certainly for Zoominfo as well.
You really are a bellwether, I think, for a lot of the stuff that we talk about here. It's like, so I wouldn't say that there's panic in the streets, but people are really asking me all the time, like, what's happening? Where is this all headed? So as we go along, I'll try to dig on some of those things. Any particular initiatives that you guys are working on? Like, what's happening with the adoption side?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, the customer onboarding and adoption team were actually two separate teams at the beginning of this year. And what we found is that we really need to work in conjunction with each other. It needs to be one team, one dream, as you may see or hear out there. And that combination of starting with the customer and understanding what their business use case is and really like diving in deep and asking them what they want their business outcomes to be as a result of using that platform is something that's really important to start the relationship. But we want to drive that through the 90-day period that you're in the onboarding and adoption phase for. And that's really what our biggest initiative is right now. We are working to making sure that we're being consultative to our customers, to understanding their business case, to understanding what they want that outcome to be, and then helping them measure adoption. So when you think about administrators, our team is working with the administrators of the platform to ensure that their end users are seeing value and that the company is seeing a return on that investment that they have purchased in the platform and invested there. And so we need to work and give resources to the administrators to make sure their end users are adopting the product and using it every day. Because the more you use a SaaS technology, the more return on investment you're going to see. The more you do a search or find a contact, the more value you're going to see out of that. And as you push them into engage and you get those sales flows started, then you're going to start seeing people engaging with those sales flows and hopefully turning those prospects into customers. And so our main focus has been adoption and making sure that we support our platform administrators in getting end user adoption, because that's how they see return on their investment.
And I think that anybody on a SaaS platform would agree with you. You've got to get adoption. You've got to get people that stick around. Retention there's a direct line to the bottom line. How specific can you get on how you measure that? How do you achieve that?
I think what's important is understanding, so to your point, a lot of SaaS companies look at adoption for customer retention. But in our onboarding team, we're looking at adoption for customer return on investment, right? Our focus is making sure that they see the return on the investment. Of course, we don't want our customers to churn. We want to keep customers. And we all know that product adoption means that they'll see that. But it's more of a focus on the customer for our onboarding and adoption team, and what they're going to get out of that adoption is where our focus is and how we drive that. The KPIs around that, they're standard SaaS metrics. Are you logging in? Are you using it? I think those are pretty industry standard. I don't think that there's anything super specific to Zoominfo that we're looking to do. Onboarding is about the surface adoption, making sure that you have the technical setup, and then making sure that you're adopting the product at a surface level. So then when you're ready, you can dive deeper into deeper feature adoption.
Okay, so you've got a bunch of ADHD-minded salespeople using your platform who are too busy in the first place to do much of anything. Mm-hmm. How do you execute on getting them to take the time to use it and to adopt it? I mean, it seems to me incomprehensible that you can get that. It's like herding cats into a place where you've got to do it. What are some of the things you could share with other people who are trying to improve adoption in their world? What are the things you can do to get through break that? It's about human behavior, right?
It is. And I'll pass this over to John a little bit because I think he does it so well. But one of the things that we've done on our team is enable our onboarding managers to understand the persona that is buying our product so that they can then provide that value to the admin and resources to the admin to give to the end user. I don't know if you want to add in any more of what you've been doing, John, but I know you've done a lot with enabling our team on that persona.
Yeah. No, I like how you brought that up in terms of the persona. And I think this is something that I've kind of engraved into my mind, and I'm trying to get this still into the mind of, our onboarding team, is that when we're working with our customers, it's really important to personalize to the persona and not the person. And I think that's where we're getting caught up a lot, is that we need to make sure that we are focusing when we're working with our customers, understanding who they are, what their role is, and what's important to them. And ultimately, how they're going to make money. That's what's most important to them. So, when it comes to our products, and I think this might be pretty standard across a lot of when it comes to SaaS products, is when you make a big purchase for a SaaS product, I'll just take whether it's, Sales OS, one of the products we offer, or whether it's Engage. I'm pretty confident to say it's a little bit overwhelming for the customer at that point. And that's why it's so important during the onboarding phase in terms of what Mary's been talking about in terms of the customer adoption is one, understanding who they are in terms of their persona, in terms of what they care about and what we can focus on. And how can we as onboarding managers be that guide and be that resource to lead them, to the light at the end of the tunnel. So that's, really how we're focused right now here at Zoominfo, specifically within our customer onboarding team, because we understand that the more adoption there is, the stickier the product will get, and the more likely the customers will stick around longer.
I think one of the other ways, Jeff, we do this really specifically is talking to the customer about adoption and kind of digging in as to why their end users have not adopted the product. And when I think about why I don't use a piece of technology, it's because I'm either not aware of that technology, I'm not enabled on that technology, or I'm not excited about it. And to your point, you have all these sales reps, they're busy, they're trying to hit their quota. How do you get them excited about something if they're not aware about it, if they're not enabled on it? And so we've been working on, how do we create resources to make it easy for the admin to get someone excited? And I think you have to identify the stage of end user adoption. Like, where are they? Are they not aware of what a sales flow is in Engage?
Right.
What can I give you as an admin to give to your end users to make them aware? If you would talk about excitement, my favorite one is to, salespeople love spiffs. You love a bingo card, a bingo game, right? What if you have a bingo card that we give to you and it says, create 3 sales flows, add 5 contacts in, get one person to respond to your sales flow. What about a spiff around creating the best sales flow and the winner gets a $10 gift card because they got the most responses back or they got the most engagement? You can see what's happening in the platform with the analytics, and the admin gets to use the analytics, and the end users are excited about using the features. And so we start building power users in that way. And then they're also using it and starting to get prospects to start engage with you and create it and maybe schedule a demo or something like that. And so our big initiative around adoption has been about creating resources for admins, platform admins, to increase adoption and get them excited around those 3 phases or stages of end user adoption.
All right, that's outstanding. I love the idea of gamifying, but it's very specific about how to go about it. So you're sitting in this very interesting spot. Typically, I'll end up talking on the show to people who are hiring salespeople or who are sales leaders on the front end of the thing, but you're working in obviously a customer support role. How do you hire people into this role, knowing that you're working so hard to do the exact same thing for your end user? You're at this really interesting crossroads in the DNA of the kind of person that comes on board with you.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have obviously multiple products. We have Sales OS, Marketing OS, Talent OS. A lot of our buyers are sales representatives, but we are working in the talent and the marketing space as well. And we try to organize our team by those products so that, we've hired a lot of people who have been SDRs in the past, and they are working with who better to onboard a seller or an organization of sellers than someone who's done it themselves, who can project the same experiences and can understand that experience. And I think that has really helped us to, have people that maybe have that background, although not required, certainly on our team. It's good to have people who have those backgrounds of marketing or talent or sales. And then, I think part of your question was, we're trying to retain the people that we've hired into these positions that maybe weren't in customer service or in customer onboarding before, and just making sure that they feel valued in their job. Just like we want our customers to see the value of their investment, we want our employees to see the value and the investment that they've put in Zoominfo and in their job as well.
Any specific tips you can offer about how you go about managing that? I mean, I love that there's a SDR or maybe someone who's got experience, behind you using the types of tools like Zoominfo or Engage. But a CS role mentality is also like can typically very different. How does that? What kind of tips or strategies do you guys have internally that keeps people around? How do you, especially in the current marketplace, how do you compete with people trying to steal them away?
Yeah, it's hard. We have some really great talent on our team, right, John?
Yeah, we really do.
I think, we've built a really great leadership team that focuses on culture within our individual organization, but within the Zoominfo organization, alone. We have people like John who in the team lead role focus on coaching, who have their ear to the ground. They're player coaches as well. So people in our leadership team are also doing the job. That's important. That's always been important for me to know the product really well, even as a leader, as best I can, so that I can understand what is actually happening when a product is, or a problem, is brought to me, right? I can understand very well and in detail as best I can what the problem is, and then we can think about a solution together. And so our player coach role, I think, is really important. And then the people we have in those roles who are building culture, the work that John does to build our SMEs around adoption and understanding how to add value for our customers. I think giving them the tools they need so that they can be successful has been really important and impactful for our team.
Nice. John, you know anything to that?
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, Mary. When it comes to, just to lean on what she was saying in terms of enabling our team and empowering our team, that's my number one focus in terms of our own employee retention here. I have a saying that I use when I'm having my meetings with my team or just a broader team as a whole, that I say, listen, here at Zoominfo, we offer a lot of different products. We offer a lot of different services. There's a lot of things that, can be, it seems like it can be overwhelming at some points, especially for, newer employees here at Zoominfo. But what I always say is that, hey, I'm not looking for you to be an expert. I'm looking for you to be dangerous. And if you can be dangerous in terms of, things that so well, that brings with your curiosity, that brings to your experience, that you're gonna be able to bring that in terms of the conversations that you're having with your customers, the dialogue and just the authenticity of when it comes to having that great conversation with the customer is going to be there. So those are the things that I look for. I try to be boots on the ground with my team, understanding, putting myself in their world, understand what they're going through the experience themselves, hearing them out, because there's also a lot of things that I don't know as well that I need to be aware of, and then bringing that to the rest of the team so we're aware of that too. I'm a big fan of making sure that everybody's voice is being heard. I think that's really important, is that people want to be heard out there. And, that's a huge reason why I've actually been here at Zoominfo for so long, is because I feel that my voice has been heard in terms of making some changes in terms of the organization, what's best for our business and best for our customers. And I want to instill that same thing with my team and, the rest of the onboarding team as well.
All right. All right. So clearly you have retention nailed, right? People in the customer support and onboarding, you got that cold. What about hiring those people for your team?
Yeah.
Are you just like, yeah, we got that as well? Or is there you've got to have a very specific challenge to making sure that you bring in good people, because A players mean something different for every team.
Yeah. When it comes to hiring, from my own experience in terms of what I look for when it comes to hiring, there's really three big things that I look for. And I think they're going to be a great fit here at Zoominfo. I look to see in terms of how much curiosity they have. I'm looking for the most curious people out there, because again, when we're working with our customers and we need to understand why they came over here to Zoominfo, it's our job to understand exactly what they're looking for, why they came to us, and the goals that they're looking to achieve. And we need to be curious in terms of learning even more about the customer to help them achieve those goals. So curiosity is the number one thing I look for. Number two, what I look for is experience. So when it comes to experience, I'm not saying necessarily experience when it comes to specifically onboarding in general. But when it comes to, technology, whether it comes to being in the tech marketplace, just having the experience of working with customers as a whole, customer success, customer support, like you've mentioned, Jeff, that experience is so key because you can bring that experience with you, not only to the company in terms of how we can make the organization better, but also working with our clients as well in terms of how to make them better in terms of what you've gone through in your own personal experience as well. People love to hear about stories that you've gone through because they relate so much to it. It's like, wow, you've been through that. I'm going through that right now. What are some ways that you've gone into that? And it just makes the conversation even better. And I think the number 3 thing I look for is of the 3 is the conversational development. When it comes to interviews, of all the interviews I have been in my life, whether I'm the interviewee or the interviewer, the best interviews are the ones that have great conversation. When it comes to conversation, the conversation is supposed to be a dialogue. It's not supposed to be a monologue. So as an onboarding manager, if you're able to develop that curiosity, share your experience, and connect with the customer in terms of what's important to them, that is a recipe right there that I can bet money on. It's going to be an incredible one. And it's going to be one that's so amazing that the customers be like, wow, I am so happy I had that kickoff call, or I'm so happy I had that onboarding check-in with Zoominfo because they understood me, because it was an organic conversation. So, when it comes to A players, that's what I'm thinking of, is the people who have the curiosity, people who have relevant experience, and those who can develop an organic conversation. And it's not just checking boxes, but really using those previous things I've mentioned. That's what I'm looking for, at least when it comes to bringing on new employees.
All right. Okay. You give me a lot to dig in there, and I made some notes. But before I do, Mary, you want to add anything to that list?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great list. I think hiring it's a funny thing because it has to be, there has to be some sort of experience there, but it has to be what the organization needs as well. And it's really hard as someone who's an applicant, knowing exactly what the need is outside of that job description, right? A lot of job descriptions are pretty stuck, right? This is what you need to do in the job. But what is the business actually looking for? And so I think that part of what John had said about curiosity and, the conversational development is really important, because that's how an interviewee can find out what the organization is specifically looking for. You can have all of the qualifications, but if you're not asking those questions and being curious, you might miss the mark or not be able to share exactly what your specific qualifications or experience are that align with what their needs are.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And so here's the thing. When I have these conversations, everybody says, I want someone who can demonstrate some curiosity. Like most hiring managers would agree with you, especially in a sales or a go-to-market role. Can you be more specific about how you figure that out? I mean, it's one thing to say, "Oh, Mary, are you curious about things?" And it's like people prep for interviews in a way where they really are on point. They want to make sure that they're putting their best. They want you to tell you what you want to hear. Mm-hmm. So how do you jujitsu that to make sure that that whoever you bring on actually can demonstrate curiosity?
That's a great question. I mean, for me personally, I will say that I don't think I'm the world's best interviewer, because I just like to have a conversation. I don't have any specific questions in mind outside of tell me a little bit about yourself that I wouldn't know off of your resume, because I can read your resume. But I love to hear people tell me their resume, because they add little things in, right? Like sometimes when you add that anecdote in, it gives me a little bit more than what I read off of the resume. But I love to just have a conversation. And I think those people that when you have the conversation and you say something, the curiosity comes out in the question that they're asking and the open-endedness of that question, right? So they're not asking me a yes or no question. It could be about my dog. I don't have a dog, but if I had a dog, right? Maybe we mention it. Maybe we talk about it. Everybody always has their dog in the background and they're like, oh, be quiet, right? Oh, what's your dog's name? That shows curiosity. It has nothing to do with what the interview is. Okay. But the fact that you saw something come into the picture, or my son comes into the picture often, you can ask John, right? Oh, what's his name? Like, that is genuine curiosity. It has nothing to do with what this role is. And I think that is just as important as like business curiosity or being interested in what the interview is or what the role is. I think that genuine curiosity comes out naturally in having a conversation.
Okay, good. John, how about you? You got anything you want to add to that? I mean, like when you bring somebody on and you know that they're going to be working with your clients to retain them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Mary nailed it there. But again, when it comes to just that, that genuine curiosity, it's really, when it comes to an interview, I'm just going to take an interview as an example, right? It's expanding more than just what, the original question was in terms of diving into more, in terms of whether it was the interviewee asking the question or, if the interviewee asked the question, the interviewer gives it back and the interviewee dives into why they gave that answer, right? If someone came on and they said, for example, John, what's made you want to stay at Zoominfo for so long? And then I give them that answer. And then they build off of that answer and then add something more, maybe even ask a follow-up question. That's what, I really like that, because then again, this isn't a monologue. It's not like, John, why have you been here so long at Zoominfo? I give that straightforward answer. And then the person comes back with another answer, right? It's acknowledging it. It's thinking about it. You don't necessarily have to respond to it so quickly, but then, building off of that. And that's exactly in terms of kind of tying this back in terms of onboarding. That's what we're trying to promote more on the onboarding team. And that's what our focus is when they say like, hey, we're looking to increase our, we're looking to increase the number of meetings we book by 5 per rep per week. Okay. So you're looking to increase it 5 per week or 5 per rep per week. What's that currently? And they give you that answer. It's okay. I mean, just building off of this is so I can get a little bit more information on my end. What's going to happen just hypothetically in case that you don't book 5 more per rep per week, right? It's that curiosity that stays in there. So that's what I look for. And that's kind of think what, at least for me, when it comes to those specific hiring practice, because it's going to lead into what we can expect from them in the onboarding role.
Any particular questions or setups before or during an interview that you give them to make sure that you're finding that out?
Could you explain a little bit more?
Yeah. So if I was interviewing you, I could say, well, John, tell me about how you're curious, or let's do a mock role play of questions you like to ask, which is kind of a setup. It's kind of like it becomes a little more formulaic. And look, you guys may be just the best at figuring people out. But I'm thinking about if anybody's like watching this and they were like looking to either interview better or be a better candidate. Mm-hmm. So do you give them I was talking to, I think it was last week with Kelsey Clevenberg, is where we were talking about letting them know, hey, here's what's coming. Here's what I want to set the table for and understand about what's going to happen during this interview. Or maybe you've got a favorite question you like to ask that prompts them to eat. Maybe it's find out if they give you a yes or no answer, they're out. And if they give you, sort of dialogue, I don't know, anything like that come to mind?
Well, a question that I love asking in terms of when it comes to, interviews and bringing on new people is, of all the businesses in the world, why do you want to come work here at Zoominfo? Right. And then I want to get an understanding in terms of, the research that they have done on the back end in terms of understanding the company more. But then I also want to get an understanding in terms of who they are as a person, because that's exactly what I'm looking for, to see who they are as a person. And, given what we've talked about already in terms of the culture that we are, in terms of wanting to have their voice heard and be able to make a lasting impact and do more than just pushing buttons in terms of getting the job done. These are things that I look for. So that hopefully that answers your question, but that's what I look for. That's one of my go-tos, is just kind of understanding in terms of, why us, why the onboarding team?
Sounds good.
I think, Jeff, in previous organizations I've had, and especially onboarding teams, because a lot of what they're doing is the presentation at the kickoff call or working with customers in that capacity, having them educate us on a technology. In previous roles, the onboarding manager also did the training, so that was a portion of it. And so there was kind of like a setup of a presentation. I think a lot of people, I've seen it in CSM roles too, right? Do a presentation, a QBR or something like that. In sales, I can imagine, do a demo. And so we've definitely, I've set that up before an interview. And I think what's always most helpful for me and what, some of the outcomes of what I'm looking for, and that obviously is the presentation skills, but I think the questions, and generally it's the recruiter communicating this project or this task, the questions that they're asking to get clarification, because sometimes a presentation request is not, I've had ones that have been vague on purpose to see what questions are asked or to see what the outcome is, right? One of the positions I was hiring for, we said, teach us about a technology product. That's it. That was the only instruction that they got. And the like finding that curiosity from like, okay, do you have a specific tool that you want me to demonstrate? Do you want it to be from something I'm using right now? How long do you want the presentation to be? Like asking for those details, I think also gives you some insight into what you can expect, right? Because a lot of what an onboarding and even in sales, regardless of what you're hiring for, if a customer or prospect comes to you and asks for something, they don't always ask the question that they're looking for the answer for. And so you have to do some digging. You have to develop a little bit more information before you can give the appropriate answer. And so it is a result of that curiosity of asking more questions to make sure you're giving the right answer. And then it is always nice in the presentation, right, to see a little bit more than what you're asking for. So not too much, but just enough so that you can get back on your way to get a little bit more value than just the initial response of what you were requested.
Because someone can be overly curious, can't they?
Yes. You may need too many details from me and not be, self-sufficient on your own as well. So I always find presentations to be a little bit of a trick question, if you will. And I think you have to, as an applicant, find that right balance of how much information do I need to be successful or to give an acceptable, presentation or answer in this case. And I think that happens all the time in sales and all the time in onboarding, right? Customers ask something, it's not a clear question. You don't want to ask too many questions and not seem like you don't know the answer, but you also don't want to give an inaccurate answer. And so that ability to balance is really important in hiring too. Again, sounds like a trick question, but that's what happens in business, in the business world, in a job.
Are you finding in the current hiring, are you hiring now?
Currently, the onboarding team is fully staffed, which is really exciting. We did a big hire in January and July of a pretty big class, and we're very excited.
So it's considering, just answer as best you can, the challenge that's going on right now in terms of, layoffs and economy and uncertainty, and there's also still a huge competition for talent.
There is.
What are some of the challenges for finding somebody? Do you imagine because when you hired it in January or even June or July, that was a very different marketplace.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've been in roles where I've hired quite a bit throughout my career, and it's challenging regardless of where the market stands. I think you get to a place where you have too many candidates, and then you have a bunch of applications that you're kind of going through to see if they match. I think you go through ebbs and flows where you don't have any applicants, and now you're kind of going out and searching. I think the type of organization you work for, helps with some of that. Some people have in-house recruiters, some people outsource some of that. And so the challenges you face are different at different organizations. As a a hiring manager where Zoominfo has internal recruiters. We have a great team that can work with me to understand what our profile and persona is and go through those resumes. I've been at companies where I'm the one going through those resumes. I think right now the challenge is that people are also testing the market to see if there's something else out there, and they may or may not be ready to make a move. And so as a hiring manager, you may, and again, I'm assuming right now, we're not in this market. I'm not specifically. You may find that you're interviewing great people and you go all the way through the process and they're not ready, or it wasn't really a great fit because they didn't know enough about the organization or what they were truly looking for. I think that there's probably a lot of testing in the market right now, or, we're at the end of a year. As you mentioned, like layoffs are happening at technology companies. People want to leave, but they're nervous about the security that a new job comes with. And so they may think they're ready, but then not really be there yet. Like, I think those are some real challenges right now that could be happening for hiring managers and for candidates.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Johnny, you want to add anything to
that? I think in terms of just like, I think Mary nailed it there in terms of the things that I have noticed, just in terms of the market when it comes to hiring and looking for a new role out there, is that a lot of people are investing in themselves, which has been great to see in terms of, making sure they have the skills as well as taking certifications as well to make sure that they are, up to the standard and keeping up with the market. So that's one thing that I've noticed, taking those online courses, exploring those new industries. I think also too that, when it comes to the market and adopting, other things that I have noticed as well is the demand for work-life balance. That has been, I was talking to my brother-in-law a little bit about this a while ago, is that I felt that we were moving towards the way of this whole life of working remote, but the pandemic almost kind of forced us in there in terms of making us adapt to it a lot sooner than we thought we would actually arrive in that spot. So, fortunately here at, Zoominfo, we do have a very heavy focus on making sure that we are, taking care of our employees when it comes to work-life balance and honoring that. So these are just a few things that I have noticed when it comes to the market, is that people expanding their skill set, but also expecting that organizations out there as well are understanding the market conditions and listening to candidates out there in terms of what they want and what they're expecting in the new role.
Yeah, that's great. That's excellent insight, and I think a lot about that it's really falls into that retention umbrella, doesn't it? The work from home, you touched on this, or the return to office conundrum. I mean, my opinion is that companies have to be smarter to find the right fit. Again, I talk a lot about A players versus B players, which is unfair because it's so subjective. But if you're a is Zoominfo fully remote with options?
We have a hybrid workplace.
You have what?
We're hybrid, so we have offices in Waltham, Massachusetts, Bethesda, and Vancouver, Washington. They're open if you want to go into those offices, but we also have a fairly vast remote employee base as well.
So not required.
Mm-hmm.
So right, and that's a fit for certain personalities and candidates. What about what do you guys think in terms of where do we land for the companies who, and again, we're talking tech here, who want people in the office, who have the deep belief, and I believe that this is a valuable thing. We need to be able to see people on a regular basis in order to be as productive as possible. And I know that some of that can be rooted in old mentality, thinking of someone who's just afraid of people not being productive. But just for now, let's leave that aside. Like, where do we land? I think, if we look at a 6 to 12 month horizon, what's the landscape look like? Is it find your own way? It's a little more granular. Does one sort of win out over the other?
That's a great question. I think that's really difficult to answer in terms of where the market is necessarily going, because I think it is very, not even industry, but just very organization specific. I think, where people have offices, where they've hired in the past 2 years, some organizations haven't hired outside of where their main bases are. And so, I don't know what that ratio is. I don't have that kind of data necessarily, but if a lot of organizations have hired close to their home bases, there's no need for them to go to remote. And if many of them have done that, then the landscape is going to kind of maybe go in that direction. I think a lot of organizations have been really open-minded and seen the success of people working remotely. I think there's probably a desire to get people to be in person because that's just a great experience for most people, not for all, right? Like some people have really, really thrived. I don't know that I could make a prediction on where we go. And I do think though that if there are organizations that are really, saying you must come into the office and an employee's, personal needs doesn't align with that, they're going to look elsewhere. And they can, because I don't think that every single organization is going to say mandatory back in the office full time. And even part-time. I don't think that will happen. And so there will be an opportunity to move, but then does that shift the market to make it really competitive for those organizations? And what does the talent look like there? It'll be really interesting to see how that shift happens as organizations do start returning to office and instituting policies that may be a little bit more of a requirement.
Yeah, I agree with all that. That's excellent. John, you have anything to that?
I mean, if I'm going to add anything, I think when it comes to this is that, in terms of, working remotely and what to expect from the market, in the future, like Mary said, it is very hard to predict, but I think giving that option of the hybrid model is the best of both worlds. I mean, don't get me wrong, when it comes to remote work, it for a lot of people, it's great. For a lot of people, though, they don't like it and they would rather want to be in the office. Right. And that's one thing to really consider is having both of those options available to those employees. And I think that's what's most comfortable, because exactly like, what we're doing here at Zoominfo, like Mary said, it's not required to go in right now. It's strictly voluntary. But people are going into the office. We're seeing it when we're on our meetings, how people are in the office. I remember yesterday we were on an onboarding meeting and one of the onboarding managers was like waving to another employee that actually was on the onboarding team. It was nice just to smile and wave to that person to see that, they were in the office sharing that experience together. So I think that all goes into it in terms of just having that option. And I think, when candidates see that companies are, open to having that hybrid model and, whether what's more comfortable to that person, whether it is remote or being in office and what that frequency is, I think that's a huge selling perk when it comes to, working for a business like that.
Yeah, I think flexibility, I agree with you, is critical if you've got it, right? But I also agree with certain people who have a certain type of organization and they believe, it changes the candidate pool, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it in theory would make it maybe far more difficult to find the right person because it's not a monolithic pool of candidates.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
I mean, I think you're spot on. It could be a smaller pool of candidates. I mean, that's why people, it's funny, John, you said something, you said like, it's a real perk. Well, in job descriptions before all this happened, one of the benefits was remote work. I don't think I see remote work necessarily as one of the benefits in a job description as often anymore because kind of implied, or it's in the location. It's not a perk anymore. It'll be interesting to see those companies that put it as a perk, as they see it as a perk, because most of the organization, maybe that position can be remote, but most of the organization is in the office. I think that, if you think about where organizations are, like where they're headquartered, where they have offices, what does the talent pool look like there? What positions are they hiring for? You see different profiles of candidates, and that's why some positions have been remote before all this happened, because you got a better candidate pool or a different candidate pool if you were allowing remote work. And so I think you will see some of that, certainly. And that will change for people who are in the recruiting world, I think, right? How you actually recruit and how you look at talent and how you hire will need to be different, because your candidate pool will be different.
Yeah, it's really, I agree with you. It's going to be very, very interesting. So, I mean, if you think about some of the really big players, the Apples and the Googles and the Metas who have invested heavily in campuses on the belief that, there's a value there to the productivity. They're located in the most expensive cities in the world. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, here's the follow-up question as we wrap up. What's happening in the economic world? Like, are we headed for more slowdown? Is it going to stay depressed? Will we see it return to this type of level of frenzy?
That's a great question. The market, I think, it's going to fluctuate. I don't know exactly. I don't have any predictions on necessarily, where we're going or what that timeline will look like. I think it's important.
Oh, come on now. You've got opinions. What do you think?
I don't have any opinions on this. I throw it over to John for this one. I think, I just think it's important for people, whether you're looking for a job or you're in a job, to really make sure that you understand what that market looks like, what the positions are that you're moving towards, that you understand the companies that you're going to join. No one can predict, whether a position will be there or if it will be eliminated, or if, that job that you've been interviewing for, they'll hold the hiring at some point in the process. You can't necessarily predict that with ease. But I think to John's point, as an interviewee, being curious and being informed before you start taking those steps is really important, but also taking chances to make sure that you have what you need as an individual, and going out there and looking for a position, if that's what you need to be doing, is important too.
So Zoominfo hasn't made the news for big layoffs, which is refreshing. Is there a type of philosophy that's sort of grounded? Because I think that, we know that some people overhired. There was a little bit of exuberance. There was a need. There was a demand because more people were at home over a couple of years. There's a lot of reasonable reasons. What makes Zoominfo different?
That's a great question. I think that the leadership is very thoughtful in everything that they do. And I think that that's important, and not to say that other organizations are not thoughtful. But I think we've been, very, very forward thinking in understanding the market and just really making data-driven, intelligent decisions, which is refreshing. And that's what you want as an organization. And, we're happy to have not made the news for any of that. And we're happy that we have the people that we have. They work hard, and they are, extremely valuable to the organization. We're happy to have our team on the onboarding team. So
you've done obviously incredible work in terms of like bringing on the right people and keeping them around. Let's close it out. Any advice? Because Zoominfo is a larger organization than most, obviously Series A through, say, C or D startups. Advice for people on the smaller scale that might be competing for talent, might be looking to retain the people that they have or put into place retention programs, whether it's customer service. I mean, that's obviously where we're talking. So just stick it there.
Yeah. I think in terms of retaining talent, listening to your employees, making sure you understand what's going on. It doesn't mean you're going to solve everything in the amount of time they may want it resolved, but I think making people feel like they're heard, being as transparent as possible is really important, especially when you may be in a smaller organization. I think that's really important. I think on the hiring side, it's important to understand the role that you're hiring for and the people that you're hiring. You need to see their potential, especially I've been in smaller startup organizations. You don't just do the job that you're hired for. And so that curiosity, go-getter attitude is going to be really important to the success of the organization overall. So knowing what you're hiring for and what you need them to do and the type of person that you need is going to be really important as you go through those hiring practices. And just that attitude of the employee is also, or the potential employee is really important to knowing that you're going to be able to build off of their potential and they're going to be able to grow within your organization too. Sorry, I answered that kind of backwards.
Hey, listen, we're forwards, we're backwards here. It's no big deal. John, what about you? Like any advice for people that might be? Because again, I think that now's a great time to find incredibly good talent. I have a bench of people who are outstanding and unfortunate victims of a down economy. So what smaller organizations? I mean, heck, I guess anybody, but you're like, the more nimble groups do, in your opinion.
And you're asking in terms of retaining that talent that they currently
hiring
have.
And retaining. Yeah, hiring and retaining.
Yeah, I think Mary nailed it in terms of the first, in a few points that she made in terms of being transparent and having the voice heard. These are a few things that we strive here at Zoominfo wholeheartedly. I think another couple of things to think about as well in terms of retaining the talent as well is encouraging professional development and further experience. That's something that we try to do here at Zoominfo, and especially when it comes to like company involvement. We want our employees to be doing even more, right? You hear it all around the industry that you want to hire difference makers, right? And sometimes the difference makers are the one they're building that difference making like mindset within that organization in terms of how you're empowering them. So if you're able to encourage that professional development in terms of taking certifications, taking the courses that you are providing within the business, if you're motivating them to, go out and, be even more relevant, on LinkedIn, for example, developing the personal brand, showing who you are, on social media, how you are a true voice at the company. I think these are a few really big things as well that employees can do on their own and organizations can promote on their end, encouraging our employees to stay. The more that you're doing for your employees, the more likely they're going to be sticking around. I think just going back to what Mary said, it's being heard. Everybody wants to be heard, whether it's an employee or whether it's, the customer that you're working with, their voice wants to be heard, and you to acknowledge that and work with them in terms of however we can do to empower.
100%. It's a magical skill. Like when you have people who feel like they're being heard and they're valued is really, really, really key. So why do people fail at that? Seems obvious, doesn't it?
It does seem obvious, but especially when you're at a smaller organization or a startup and everybody's doing everything, you're trying to make sales growth, you're trying to build a whole new department to support your customers, you're trying to do X, Y, and Z. There are a lot of competing priorities when you try to do that. And I think it can be really difficult, right? Like everybody's doing a little bit of everything and you're working off the side of your desk. I think one of the things I had heard so much in my career is, oh, well, we do this off the side of our desk. And of people do that. Big or small company, it happens a lot. And when you do things off the side of your desk, are you doing it to the best of your ability? And are you missing other things that you should be like, does your desk need to be a little bit bigger, right? And I think that's the piece that like sometimes you miss pieces of that, whether it's the culture, the listening to people, it's an intentional act that you have to do. And, you focus on building that sale and getting your sales growth, and something falls off the side. And it's not always the people, but if there's no sales, it's hard to have people, right? And so it's a balancing act as you do all of these things. And that intentional act is sometimes really, really difficult. I think we found in the onboarding team, I feel like we found success because we have a leadership organization. We've really been intentional about what their role is, right? The team leads, they're coaching our team. They're giving them the resources. It wasn't always like that. They were doing projects off the side of their desk. And what we found is we were missing that people piece and that coaching piece. And so we made sure to redirect that energy, that there is a group of people, there is a role where we're focusing on the culture, we're focusing on the people within our organization. And that the only way to really do that and to do it well is to be intentional. And it falls off sometimes. It really does. And it's hard when it does.
Falls under that simple yet difficult paradigm, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's also difficult to, the idea of listening to people isn't the same as pleasing everybody. And I think that's hard too, because when you start listening, and depending on your personality, you want to make everybody feel comfortable and you want to give people exactly what they want. But the other part of listening and working with people is making sure that you're transparent in what you can and cannot do and what your long-term and your short-term plans are. And so the simple act of listening is one piece of it, but truly the rest of it is going through on the transparency, building a strategic plan, sharing that strategic plan, those communication pieces of it, and then continually resharing it. That's the difficult piece that comes out of that simple gesture of listening, right?
Well, all I know is that everybody's going to be bugging me now to find out how to get a job with you guys. So can I share your contact information? I have your LinkedIn profiles here.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
If anybody, obviously you can rewatch this or pause it or whatever, but is that sort of the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, that would be
definitely.
So we're sort of at our hour. We don't have to quit, but I really feel like this has been incredibly enlightening. Anything you want to add?
No, I just appreciate you having us on and being able to talk about, I think, something that John and I are extremely passionate about, and that's not just onboarding, but it's people that we work with, it's hiring, it's sharing any insights that we have to help people, right? Like that's, I think, part of why John and I do onboarding is it's to help people. And that doesn't just mean onboarding and technology, but whatever insights we have, we're willing to share. And obviously our contact information is there. And I know John and I both love to chat with people. So feel free to reach out, and we appreciate you, Jeff, for having us.
I appreciate you guys coming on. It's been really, really great. And hopefully you'll come back and we'll do it again.
Sounds great.
Definitely.
Thank
you. All right.
you.
Everybody, if you need to get in touch with me here at Talent Reach to get in contact with anybody else, please feel free to, and we will see you next week.